There is no middle ground between them. Baruch Spinoza believed that God is logic itself, the infinite substance that expresses itself through everything that exists. God has no face, no voice, no wrath, just law, just structure, just necessity. But Søren Kierkegaard, he said God cannot be found in reason. He lives in the absurd, in the silence, in the anguish of the leap. Spinoza leads you to peace through understanding. Kierkegaard drags you into despair and demands that you believe anyway. Two men, two minds, two completely different ways to deal with existence. One sees God in clarity, the other in paradox. And you, the one listening, you have to choose. Do you want a universe that makes sense, or one that requires surrender into madness? Spinoza believed the human mind could find freedom by aligning itself with the necessary laws of the universe. For him, God was not a being, but being itself. To know God was to know the system, to accept the structure of reality, and stop suffering by resisting what cannot be changed. No commandments, no salvation, just understanding. But Kierkegaard thought that was hollow. He said that understanding was a lie we tell ourselves to avoid facing the truth, that life is chaotic, that reason fails, that God does not explain himself. He demands faith, even when it contradicts everything we know. He called it the absurd, and he said the only way to meet God is to leap into it. So what do you believe? That peace is found in knowledge, or that truth only appears when you break? That the divine is within the harmony of nature, or hidden behind a veil of despair? This is not just philosophy, it's not just theology, it's a confrontation with the most brutal question of all. Can you live without certainty, or do you need the universe to make sense? And if it doesn't, will you collapse or leap? Both Spinoza and Kierkegaard believed life was full of suffering, but they offered completely opposite responses to it. For Spinoza, suffering comes from misunderstanding. We suffer because we think we are separate. We believe we have free will, that things should be different. But everything that happens is necessary. You suffer not because the world is cruel, but because you imagined it was supposed to be kind. Pain, for Spinoza, is not punishment, it's friction between illusion and truth. So his solution was to understand, to see that everything, even your fear, even your failures, arise from the same divine system. The more you understand, the more you align, and the more you align, the more you are free. No guilt, no divine anger, just law. And that's where Kierkegaard explodes the idea. He says, understanding can't save you. It doesn't silence the terror. It doesn't hold you when you wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if your life means anything. It doesn't answer the real question, why are we even here? To Kierkegaard, trying to rationalize God is idolatry. It's making the infinite obey human logic. And God, he says, refuses to be understood. You don't meet him in clarity, you meet him in collapse. In the moment your certainty shatters, and there's nothing left to lean on. That's when you make the leap of faith, not because it makes sense, but because it doesn't. Because in the absurd silence of the universe, you still choose to believe. It's not comfort, it's terror, but it's real. So now the question is sharper. When life breaks you, do you try to understand it like Spinoza? Or do you leap into the unknown like Kierkegaard? Do you seek peace through knowledge, or truth through surrender? Do you want a God that explains, or a God that demands? And if your suffering isn't a puzzle to solve, but a doorway to faith, would you walk through it? Spinoza said something radical. Not only is God not a person, he's not even separate from you. You are not watched by God. You are made of God, a single expression of the same infinite substance that forms everything else. You are not a sinner. You are a mode of the divine. In this worldview, there is no you versus God, no judgment, no redemption, because there was never separation to begin with. And if you can grasp that, really feel it, then the war in your mind ends. You don't need to be saved. You just need to understand what you are. But Kierkegaard, he would call that arrogance. To him, the human being is defined by contradiction. We are suspended between the finite and the infinite, between the dust of the earth and the hunger for eternity. And that tension is not an illusion. It's the truth of existence. Trying to dissolve that tension through reason, he says, is cowardice. You can't explain your way to God. You face him, you wrestle with him, like Jacob in the desert, bruised, terrified, uncertain. And if you're honest, you'll see that you are not part of God's peace. You are part of his mystery. You are not an expression. You are a risk. Because faith, real faith, doesn't come from clarity. It comes from trembling. So who is right? Spinoza offers peace, but a peace that asks you to let go of your individuality, your free will, your longing for a personal connection. Kierkegaard offers God as other, and demands that you leap into relationship, into paradox, into fear and love at the same time. Which one feels closer to your experience? The stillness of cosmic unity, or the fire of personal confrontation? Because in the end, both men are trying to answer the same ache. What do we do with this life, when it makes no promises and offers no guarantees? Do we explain it, or embrace it? Do we dissolve into the one, or cry out into the silence? This isn't just about God, it's about how you live every moment of your life. Because if Spinoza is right, then your task is not to beg, or to hope, or to believe. Your task is to understand, to see that everything, your thoughts, your fears, your past, has a cause. And in that cause, there is peace. You stop blaming, you stop pleading, you stop asking why me. Instead, you study the flow of reality and begin to move with it. You become a philosopher of your own existence, detached, aware, aligned. Pain still comes, but it no longer owns you. Desire still burns, but it no longer blinds you. You act, not out of guilt or hope, but out of clarity. There's no heaven to earn, no hell to fear, only the freedom that comes when you no longer expect the universe to revolve around your wishes. But if Kierkegaard is right, then that's a dead life, a bloodless intellectual mask worn over a soul that's starving for meaning. You can't reason your way through heartbreak. You can't explain away longing. You can't logic your way out of dread at 2 a.m. when the silence is screaming. You need something more, and Kierkegaard offers that more, but it comes at a cost. You must leap into uncertainty. You must surrender the desire to know and embrace the need to believe. Not because it makes you feel better, but because it tears you open, and that opening is where God enters. In his view, a life without trembling isn't a real life at all. So again, we return to you. Do you want peace through understanding, or meaning through surrender? Do you seek stability in law, or passion in paradox? Do you want to dissolve into the universe, or be pierced by something that transcends it? Both paths demand everything, but only one can be yours. And you'll know which one by the kind of silence you feel when you're alone. At the edge of everything, after the books, the beliefs, the metaphors, you are left with a mirror. And in that mirror, you face the question that neither Spinoza nor Kierkegaard can answer for you. What kind of truth can you survive? Because both offer truth, but only one will fit the shape of your soul. If you crave order, reason, serenity, you may find refuge in Spinoza, in the stillness of a universe that needs no justification, in the logic that everything is exactly as it must be. No punishment, no chaos, no miracles, just necessity. But there is no comfort there, only acceptance, only the cold beauty of a God who does not weep and does not smile, because he is not watching, he is being. But if that leaves you hollow, if your soul burns not for law, but for fire, then you may belong to Kierkegaard, to the trembling, to the leap, to the absurd intimacy of a God who hides, and still dares you to love him. In that world, there is no safety, only faith, only risk, only the terrifying freedom of choosing to believe in something that may never answer you back. So again, what do you want? Clarity or mystery? Peace or passion? A universe that makes sense? Or one that demands your heart? Because whichever path you choose, it will cost you something. One asks you to sacrifice your illusion of control, the other your illusion of understanding. And here's the final truth. You don't get to know which one is right, but you do have to live with the consequences of your choice. So now we ask you, not as a viewer, but as a thinker, as a soul, do you find God in the silence of reason, or in the scream of the absurd? Tell us. We want to know which truth you can carry and which one you can't. But maybe the real question is not which philosophy is right, but which one is true for you. Because you weren't born into a vacuum. You were born into chaos, into stories, dogmas, contradictions. You inherited fear disguised as faith, and rules disguised as truth. And now, after all the noise, you stand where Spinoza once stood, watching the world unfold with mathematical precision, and where Kierkegaard once trembled, facing the void and daring to call it God. Maybe part of you longs for that peace, the silence of logic, the comfort of structure, to know that everything happens as it must, that there are no mistakes, only patterns you don't yet understand. But maybe another part of you, the deeper, older part, is still screaming, still burning for meaning, for connection, for something that doesn't explain you, but loves you, even if it breaks you. And maybe you don't have to choose just yet. Maybe today is not about answers, but about standing between two fires and not looking away. Because there is a strange kind of freedom that comes not from knowing the truth, but from being honest about your hunger for it. So now, one last question. If God truly exists, would you want him to make sense? Or would you rather he be beyond you, so that your search never ends? And if your search never ends, maybe that's the point. Maybe the ache you feel isn't a flaw to be fixed, but a compass pointing toward something sacred. Maybe the contradiction inside you, the one that wants logic and love, order and wildness, isn't a weakness, but the very place where the divine speaks. Because neither Spinoza nor Kierkegaard had all the answers. They only held mirrors, and each mirror shows a different part of you. The part that needs reason, and the part that needs mystery. The part that wants to understand the cosmos, and the part that wants to fall into it. So maybe freedom isn't about choosing a side. Maybe freedom is learning to stand in the middle, to live with paradox, to let the questions shape you instead of forcing an answer to silence them. Because the moment you stop asking, the moment you pretend to know, that's when the search dies. And when the search dies, so does your connection to the divine. So we end not with a conclusion, but with an invitation. What if God is not logic or absurdity, but the fire that burns between them? Can you live inside that fire without trying to control it? Can you live like the answer is not the destination, but the question itself? Tell us what you see. We're listening. And so is something else.